The humid breeze of the dense forest cut through the air as a group of three friends, guided by curiosity and the desire for an unprecedented adventure, walked towards the heart of the Blackwood Forest in the state of Maine. Each person carried a personal motivation for the journey. Harper, the daring photographer, was looking for the perfect shot for her new exhibition. Ethan, a veteran forest guide, wanted to prove that stories about disappearances in the region were just folklore. Mia, fascinated by local legends, dreamed of transforming her research into a book that would reveal the mysteries of the forest. Before we continue with this intriguing story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave a like. This helps us bring more content like this to you. Now let's get back to the story. Right at the entrance to the forest, rusty signs warned, "Private property, no entry allowed." But none of them seemed willing to give up. Harper laughed as he adjusted his camera. "An old sign won't stop me, not after we came this far." Ethan, ever the pragmatist, adjusted his backpack and grumbled, "I just hope your adventure doesn't lead to us becoming bear food." Mia, with a twinkle in her eye, showed a worn map she had found in a public archive. "Don't worry, this is where the stories say something lives. And where there are stories, there is truth." The trio entered the forest. With each step, the world around him seemed more alive and imposing. Gigantic trees created a natural roof, blocking out almost all sunlight. The sound of the forest, the chirping of birds, the buzzing of insects, and the rustling of leaves created a constant symphony. The first warning. After a few hours of walking, Harper, who was leading the way, stopped abruptly. Ethan and Mia almost ran into her. "Did you hear that?" she asked, her voice a whisper. Ethan frowned. "What it was? I only hear the wind and..." A strange sound cut through the forest. It was a human voice, but something was wrong. It looked incredibly familiar. Harper froze. "I know that voice," she murmured, turning to Mia. "She's my sister. She died 3 years ago." Ethan crossed his arms, trying to remain calm. "Harper, you know this is impossible. The sound may have echoed from a house or..." "There are no houses in this area, Ethan," interrupted Mia, worried. "We are in the heart of the forest." Before they could decide what to do, Harper started walking towards the voice. "Harper, wait!" shouted Ethan, but it was too late. Harper moved as if hypnotized, getting closer and closer to the sound. The voice now not only called her name, but also said words that only she recognized. The group arrived at a clearing surrounded by twisted trees. In the center, a huge ancient tree, its roots reaching out of the ground like claws, seemed to pulse with a life of its own. Harper stopped suddenly, eyes fixed on the trunk. "Do you see this?" The roots moved almost imperceptibly, as if they were alive. Ethan pulled Harper back. "That's not right. We need to get out of here now." Before they could react, the wind changed and voices began to surround them, coming from all directions. It was as if the trees were talking. Harper started shouting, "She's here! My sister is here!" Ethan held on tight to his arm, but when he looked around, he noticed something terrifying. The trees were closer than before. Mia tried to remain calm and pulled out the map again, but when she unfolded it, she noticed that it was all smudged as if the paper was wet. "I can't understand where we should go," she shouted, panic taking over. Suddenly, Harper broke free from the group and ran towards the voices, ignoring Ethan and Mia's pleas. They followed her, but within seconds she disappeared into the dense fog that was beginning to form. Silence took over for a few moments. Then Harper's voice came again, now strange and distorted. "Why don't you come here? It's safe." Mia grabbed Ethan's arm, her eyes wide with terror. "It's not her. That's not her." Ethan, armed only with a machete in his experience, felt for the first time in his life something he had never felt before, a genuine fear that they wouldn't get out of there alive. As they tried to decide what to do, something began to move in the trees. A tall, shapeless silhouette covered in a layer of moss and roots slowly emerged. His eyes, small and bright like those of an animal, watched them with malicious curiosity. And then the creature spoke in Harper's exact voice. "You have come too far." The clearing had become the epicenter of a terror that Ethan and Mia did not fully understand. The creature staring at them seemed to be part of the forest itself. Her back blended into the trunk of the tree behind her, while her hands, long and twisted like branches, moved in a slow and calculated manner. Ethan tried to move, but his legs felt anchored to the floor. Beside him, Mia was visibly shaking, muttering something incomprehensible. "Who are you?" Ethan shouted, trying to sound firm but failing. The creature tilted its head to the side, as if analyzing the question. Then its mouth, a jagged opening covered in moss and jagged teeth, moved. "What you hear is what you fear," she replied in Harper's voice. The phrase echoed in the clearing, as if all the trees were repeating it. Mia grabbed Ethan's arm. This is not human. We need to get out of here now." Ethan nodded, but the sound of roots dragging through the ground interrupted his attempt at movement. The creature was blocking the way back. "There's nowhere to go," said the creature, now in the voice of Mia's mother, who had been bedridden for years. The sound devastated Mia. "Mommy!" she whispered, trying to move forward. Ethan held her around the waist. "No! Don't listen!" he shouted. But the voices continued, and the forest seemed to conspire against them. The branches of the surrounding trees began to intertwine, closing like the teeth of a trap. The roots rose from the ground, forming insurmountable barriers. Ethan wielded his machete and tried to cut one of the approaching roots, but as soon as the blade touched the wood, the creature let out a guttural sound, almost a scream that made his ears hurt. You can't hurt what already belongs to the forest. Suddenly, they heard a scream in the distance. It was Harper. "Help! I'm trapped!" Ethan looked at Mia, undecided. "Is that her?" he asked, knowing it wasn't. I don't know." Mia was crying now, her mind torn between running away and helping her friend. The creature, however, didn't seem worried. Slowly, she began to move backwards, as if inviting them to follow her. "Come, I'll take you to her," he said in Harper's desperate voice. Ethan realized what was happening. "He's drawing us towards something, to whatever that thing's lair is." But Mia didn't listen. Driven by instinct, she let go of Ethan and ran toward the sound. "Harper, wait! I am going!" Ethan ran after Mia, yelling for her to stop, but the sounds of the voices began to distort. The forest became denser, the air heavier, as if something was pushing them down. The fog was becoming so thick that Ethan could barely see Mia in front of him. When he finally reached her, they both stopped abruptly. They were in front of a cave, partially covered by roots and moss. The air coming out of it was cold and carried a metallic smell, like blood. Mia hesitated. "Harper, she must be inside." Ethan pulled her by the arm. "Listen, this is what this thing wants. You're playing with us. There's no way Harper is alive in here." Before they could decide what to do, a familiar, feminine laugh echoed from the cave. Mia trembled. "It's her. It needs to be her." The entrance seemed smaller than expected, like a half-open mouth. When they entered, they realized that the interior was much larger. The ceiling of the cave was lined with vines and branches that dripped with a dark, viscous substance. "What is this place?" Ethan whispered. In the center, there was something that looked like an altar. On it, remnants of clothes they recognized as Harper's were scattered. Around the altar, small figurines made of bones were arranged. Each had eyes made of glowing stones that seemed to look straight at them. Before they could move forward, they heard Harper's voice again, now clearer. "Why did it take so long?" From a shadow in the corner of the cave, Harper appeared, but something was wrong. She was smiling, a smile that was too wide, that seemed to tear across her face. "I thought you would never arrive." Mia ran to her, but Ethan held her tightly. "It's not her. Look." The flashlight's light revealed something disturbing. Harper's legs were no longer human. They were intertwined in roots that seemed to merge with the cave floor. His eyes had no pupils, just a dull, glass-like glow. Stay. Stay with me. The forest is safe, Harper said as his arms reached out unnaturally, trying to reach Mia. Ethan stepped between Mia and Harper. We're not staying. You're not Harper. The smile disappeared from the creature's face. Then you belong to it too. The cave walls began to move. The roots reached up, trying to grab them. Ethan shouted to Mia, "Run!" As they ran back through the forest, the creature continued to chase them. The trees seemed to form a maze, and the sounds of familiar voices confused them with every step. When they finally emerged from the denser area, they stumbled upon the entrance to the original clearing, now empty. Mia fell to her knees, panting. That wasn't real. It can't be real. Ethan looked around, trying to understand what had happened, but something on the floor caught his attention. There, partially buried in the ground, was a necklace. He recognized it immediately. It belonged to Harper. When he picked it up, he heard her voice again, now whispering, "You will never be alone." The sky was beginning to darken, and the surrounding forest seemed more alive than ever. Every shadow seemed to move. Every sound echoed with an unsettling presence. Ethan held Harper's necklace tightly while Mia leaned against a tree, trying to catch her breath. Ethan studied the necklace closely. It was simple, silver, but now it had something engraved on it that hadn't been there before. Strange, rune-like symbols that pulsed with a faint glow. He felt a chill as he ran his fingers over the marks. This wasn't here before. Mia, still shaking, looked at him. "What does that mean?" "Ethan, what's going on here?" He shook his head, unable to respond. The necklace seemed to emit a faint heat, almost as if it were alive. It was then that a voice echoed in the clearing, soft and melodic, but full of threat. "You should never have come." The voice came from everywhere, but also from the necklace. It was Harper. Mia took a step back, horrified. "That's not possible. She's trapped in it." Ethan threw the necklace to the ground, but the runes continued to glow even from a distance. An icy breeze crossed the clearing, lifting dry leaves and scattering them like a moving cloud. Little by little, the leaves began to come together, forming a humanoid figure before them. The leaf creature appeared unstable, flickering like a flame in the wind, but its eyes shone with an intense, steady light. She spoke with a guttural voice that seemed to come from the depths of the earth. "She is among you, and now you belong to us." Mia grabbed Ethan's arm. "She who? What are you talking about?" The figure tilted its head as if studying the two. "The forest doesn't take, it just gives back. Those who come already belong." Ethan, unable to understand the meaning, pulled Mia and began to slowly back away. "This is a trap. Let's get out of here now." But the creature didn't let them go so easily. The leaves that formed it began to rotate violently, like an impending storm, and suddenly one of the creature's hands reached out, grabbing Mia's ankle. She fell to the ground, screaming as she felt something pull her back. Ethan reacted instinctively. With the machete, he tried to cut the hand that was holding Mia. The blow was accurate, but as soon as the blade cut, a horrible sound of 1,000 voices screaming echoed through the forest. The creature exploded into a cloud of leaves, freeing Mia but leaving a black mark on her ankle. Mia looked at the mark with tears in her eyes. It was like a burn, but formed by the same symbols as the necklace. "Ethan, what's happening to me?" Before he could respond, a new sound interrupted them. Footsteps. They were coming from the opposite direction of the clearing. Out of the shadows appeared Harper, or something that looked like her. Its silhouette was almost identical, but there was something wrong. His eyes were dull, and his skin had a grayish cast, as if it had been drained of all life. She walked slowly with her arms outstretched, murmuring, "Why did you leave? I needed you." Mia took a step toward Harper, but Ethan held her back. "It's not her. Look at your feet." Harper's feet were covered in roots, which seemed to grow every time she moved. Ethan saw something that made him break out in a cold sweat. The roots were not only connected to the ground, but spread throughout the forest, as if they were part of a much larger organism. "You have to help me." Harper's voice sounded sincere, almost convincing. "I'm stuck here. I can't get out." Mia hesitated. What if it's really her, Ethan? We can't just leave her here." But Ethan wasn't convinced. He positioned himself between Mia and Harper, raising the machete. "If it's her, then she's already dead." Harper stopped suddenly, cocking his head to the side as if he heard something. His expression changed, his face contorted into a mask of pain and anger. "You don't believe me?" The sound of growing roots became deafening. The forest began to shake. The surrounding trees seemed to lean, creating a tight circle. The ground beneath his feet began to crack, revealing something pulsing just beneath the surface. Mia shouted, pointing to the floor, "Ethan, what is this?" Beneath the ground, a network of glowing, pulsing roots seemed to form a gigantic heart, beating in an irregular rhythm. Harper's voice, now clearly distorted, echoed again. "You will join me. We are all one here." Ethan looked at Mia desperately. "Run to the exit. Don't look back." "And you," shouted Mia. "I'll fix this. Go now." Mia ran toward the only space still open between the trees, but the sound of roots and Harper's voice followed her like a shadow. Ethan, in turn, stayed behind, staring at the creature that looked like Harper. He held the necklace in his hand and lifted it up. "What are you? Why are you doing this?" The answer came in a whisper that seemed to come directly from his mind. "I am the forest, and you are mine." With one last cry of determination, Ethan threw the necklace onto the pulsing ground, hoping that it would somehow weaken the creature. The clearing exploded in a wave of energy, throwing him backwards. When Ethan opened his eyes, the clearing was empty. There were no more signs of Harper, the roots, or the leaf creature. Only Mia was in the distance, shouting for him. He stood up, unsteadily, and went to her. "Did you make it?" asked Mia, her eyes full of tears. Ethan looked back at the forest. Something said the terror wasn't over yet. "I don't know, but we need to get out of here." The way back seemed longer and more tortuous than the way into the forest. With every step, Ethan and Mia felt like the woods were alive, watching them. The breeze carried indistinct whispers, and shadows danced among the trees, even when there was no light to cast them. Finally, after a long walk, the two found a small stream. The sound of running water was the first natural and comforting thing they had heard since the nightmare began. Ethan dropped his backpack and took a deep breath, his shoulders still tense. "Let's stop here for a minute. We need to get ourselves together." Mia, still with the black mark on her ankle, sat down on a rock. He looked at the reflection in the water and carefully touched the mark. "Ethan, I feel like something is growing inside me." He walked over, kneeling beside her. "Let me see." Upon examining the mark, Ethan realized that the symbols were not just static. The dark lines seemed to move slowly beneath the skin, like roots seeking space to grow. "That's not good." Mia swallowed hard, trying to contain her panic. "What if I end up like Harper? What if I become part of that?" Ethan placed his hands on her shoulders, forcing her to look into his eyes. "We're going to get out of here, and we will find a way to reverse this. But to do this, we need to remain calm." As they rested, Ethan finally broke the silence that hung between them. "I've heard about this forest before. I didn't want to tell you so I wouldn't scare you, but now I think I need to be honest." Mia frowned, intrigued. "Like this? What do you know?" Ethan sighed and began to speak. "When I was a child, my father worked as a park ranger here in Blackwood. He always told me never to go into the densest parts of the forest. It told stories of people who disappeared, but no one knew exactly how. One day, he went out to investigate a disappearance and never came back." Mia's eyes widened. "And you came here anyway?" "I needed it. I spent years trying to understand what happened. Maybe I thought facing this would give me answers, but now I see that we're only closer than what took my father." Mia held his hand, her voice shaking. "So maybe that's why the forest seems to be connected to you." "As if I was waiting for you to come back." Ethan didn't respond, but the weight of the revelation hung between them. As they talked, the sound of the water changed. What was once a gentle flow became a heavy, irregular gurgle. Ethan and Mia looked at the stream and noticed that the water was turning a dark red, like blood. Mia stood up, alarmed, but felt an intense twinge in her ankle. He fell back onto the rock, groaning in pain. Ethan rushed to help her, but what he saw made him back away. The mark on his ankle had spread. Now his legs were covered in black patterns, and small roots were beginning to emerge from his skin, moving as if they had a life of their own. "Ethan! What is happening to me?" Mia shouted, tears streaming down her face. He tried to pull out the roots, but they felt incredibly strong, like wires wrapped around his flesh. "Don't move! I'll try to cut them." With the machete, Ethan cut one of the roots, but as soon as he did, Mia let out a scream of piercing pain. "No! It's connecting me to something." Ethan realized that time was running out. If they didn't do something quickly, Mia would be consumed by the forest just like Harper. He looked around, trying to find something that could help, but everything seemed against them. It was then that Mia grabbed his hand. "Listen, Ethan, I don't want to become part of this. If it comes to that, you need to leave me. No, don't even think about it. I'm going to get you out of here. Ethan, listen to me. If I lose control, you have to promise me you'll run away. Promise." Her voice was filled with despair, but also with determination. Ethan didn't respond. He just squeezed her hand tightly. Suddenly, the familiar sound of voices returned, louder and clearer than before. They called Mia's name, but with an almost affectionate tone, as if they were trying to calm her down. "Come, accept. It doesn't hurt." Mia began to shake, fighting the urge to give in. "Ethan, they're in my head. They're telling me to stop fighting." Ethan grabbed her by the shoulders, shouting over the voices, "Fight, Mia! Don't let it beat you!" But before he could say more, the surrounding forest began to close in again. The trees moved like giants, forming a perfect circle around them. The daylight disappeared, replaced by an ethereal green glow emanating from the roots. Ethan saw something in the center of the circle, an opening in the ground, like a passage into the heart of the forest. He knew that going in there would be the only way to save Mia, but he also knew it would be dangerous. "Ethan, don't come in. That's what they want." Mia's voice was weak, but determined. He ignored it. "If there's a chance to save you, I'll take it." Ethan carried Mia, who was almost unconscious, and entered the opening. The passage was dark and suffocating, and the walls seemed to be made of living flesh. Every step he took was accompanied by a pulsing sound, like a beating heart. When they reached the end of the passage, Ethan found something he could never have imagined, a colossal tree with roots that stretched for miles. On the trunk, there were human faces, frozen in expressions of pain and despair. Among them was Harper's face. Mia opened her eyes and looked at the tree. "Ethan, I feel that she is the origin of everything." Ethan set her down and raised the machete. "Then let's get this over with." The colossal tree dominated the space, its trunk pulsing as if it had a heart. The faces trapped in the wood moaned softly, and Ethan could feel Harper's blank gaze, now part of the trunk, following their every movement. Mia, lying on the ground, could barely breathe as the black roots continued to spread up her legs, threatening to consume her completely. A voice echoed in the underground chamber, deep and reverberating, like distant thunder. "You came this far, but you can't change your destiny. The forest takes what is its own." Ethan raised the machete, his determination growing. "Not if you don't have the chance." He ran towards the tree, but before he could get close, a thick root shot out of the ground, hitting him in the chest and knocking him against the wall. The impact made him dizzy, but it didn't stop him. He stood up, gripping the machete tighter. Mia, now almost completely covered in the marks and roots, raised her head with difficulty. "Ethan, she wants to take me." Her voice was weak, but there was still a trace of strength. Ethan looked at her desperately. "You're not going anywhere, Mia. Not without a fight," the voice returned, now whispering directly to Mia. "Come to me, child. I can give you peace. I can take away your pain." The roots that held Mia began to tighten, but surprisingly she began to resist. With a scream of sheer willpower, she tried to tear the roots from her body, even though each movement seemed to tear her flesh. Ethan saw Mia's struggle and knew he needed to act quickly. He ran towards the tree again, dodging the roots that tried to stop him. Using the machete, he began to cut the smaller vines that protected the trunk, each blow accompanied by screams coming from the faces trapped in the wood. "Harper, forgive me," he murmured, before striking her straight in the face. The impact caused the entire tree to shudder, and a thick green liquid oozed from the trunk as if it were bleeding. The voice roared again, this time filled with anger. "You don't understand what you are doing." Meanwhile, Mia, seeing Ethan's effort, gathered all the strength she had left. With a desperate cry, she stood up and tore out the last roots that held her back. The effort left her weak but free. She looked at Ethan and the tree, knowing he couldn't do it alone. "Ethan!" she shouted, pointing to the center of the trunk, where a faint light was shining. "There, that's where the source is." Ethan followed her gaze and saw the light, like a jewel embedded in the torso. He knew he needed to destroy it, but the roots were getting faster and faster, wrapping around his legs and arms, making it difficult for him to move. Mia realized that Ethan wouldn't make it in time. With determination, she looked at him one last time. "Forgive me, Ethan. What are you doing?" he shouted, but it was too late. Mia ran toward the tree, using what strength she had left to climb the roots to the pulsing light on the trunk. Each movement seemed to tear off chunks of her own flesh, but she didn't stop. When he reached the light, he held it with both hands and shouted, "You won't take us." With one last effort, Mia crushed the light with her bare hands. The entire cave was filled with an explosion of energy. The tree let out a horrendous scream, its roots quickly retreating into the ground. The faces on the trunk disappeared, including Harper's, who appeared to be smiling in the final moment. Ethan was thrown back by the force of the explosion and lost consciousness. When Ethan woke up, he was lying at the entrance to the forest. The sun was shining again, and the air was clean. He sat up, looking for Mia, but she wasn't there. All he found was Harper's necklace, now completely clean, without any symbols. "Mia?" he called, but the forest did not respond. Ethan felt a deep emptiness. The forest had taken Mia, but she had also destroyed the source of the evil that inhabited her. He knew she had saved his life. As he walked out of the forest, Ethan heard one last whisper, soft and comforting. It was Mia's voice. "You're free, Ethan. Take care." With tears in his eyes, he held Harper's necklace and walked toward the road, promising never to return to Blackwood Forest. Ethan walked along the deserted road that led him to Blackwood. The world around him seemed more alive than ever. The blue sky, the sound of birds, and the warmth of the sun on his skin contrasted with the dark terror he had faced in the forest. But even in the face of apparent normality, the weight of Mia and Harper's loss tightened his chest like an anchor. Every step Ethan took felt like a monumental effort. He looked back, seeing the forest in the distance, now quiet, without the sounds that once haunted him. Even from a distance, the sight of the trees sent a shiver down his spine. He clutched Harper's necklace in his hand as if it were a lifeline. "Harper, Mia, I'm sorry." The words came out as a whisper, but Ethan knew he needed to move on. He quickened his pace, finally seeing the small town where they had parked the car. The place seemed oblivious to what had happened in the forest, people walking calmly through the streets, immersed in their routines. Before entering the city, Ethan stopped at a roadside bench to rest. He took Harper's necklace out of his pocket and examined it again. The jewel sparkled in the sunlight, but something was different. The marks that once pulsed with evil energy had completely disappeared. "It's just a necklace now," he muttered to himself, trying to find some meaning in it. It was then that, as he turned the pendant, he noticed a tiny inscription that he had not noticed before. It was almost erased by time, but it was legible. Love and sacrifice do not die. They free. Ethan felt a lump in his throat. It was as if Mia had left him that message, a reminder that his sacrifice had not been in vain. Upon arriving in town, Ethan found the car exactly where they had left it, covered in leaves and dust. He opened the door and stepped inside, the silence inside enveloping him like a cold embrace. As he turned the key in the ignition, he felt a deep emptiness. "It's just you now." He said it out loud, as if he needed to hear the words to believe them. As he drove away from Blackwood, flashes of the forest and the cave came to his mind. The creature, Harper, Mia's sacrifice. It all felt both real and distant, like a nightmare that refused to end. After a few hours of travel, Ethan arrived at a small police station in a neighboring town. He entered and introduced himself to the officer on duty. "I need to report one missing..." Two, actually. The officer, a middle-aged man with a tired look, began taking notes as he listened to Ethan's report. "We entered Blackwood Forest. I don't know exactly how to explain what happened, but they couldn't get out." The officer stopped writing and looked at Ethan seriously. "Blackwood, huh? You're not the first to report disappearances there, and as far as I know, it won't be the last either." Ethan frowned, surprised by the direct answer. "Do you know what happens there?" The man shook his head, resigned. "Only legends, things that no one can prove, people who come in and are never seen again. The forest has a way of taking what it wants." "And no one does anything?" asked Ethan indignantly. "Some things are better left alone." The officer sighed, closing the notebook. "I'm sorry about your friends, but if I were you, I'd leave this behind." Back on the road, Ethan drove in silence, trying to absorb the officer's words. He knew that something deeper and older inhabited the Blackwood Forest, something that could not be destroyed completely. As the sun began to set, lighting up the horizon with shades of orange and red, Ethan saw something in the rearview mirror that made him slam on the brakes. In the distance, in the middle of the road, was Mia. She looked peaceful, her hair blowing softly in the wind, a serene smile on her face. Ethan got out of the car immediately, his heart racing. "Mia!" he shouted, running towards her. But as soon as he arrived at the place, she was no longer there. Only the wind was blowing, lifting some dry leaves. Ethan looked around, desperate, until he saw something on the floor. Harper's necklace. He took him again, and this time he felt a wave of peace. There were no voices, no energy pulses, just a comforting silence. It was as if Mia was saying goodbye. Without looking back, Ethan returned to the car and continued his journey. He knew he would never forget what happened in Blackwood, but he also knew he needed to find a way to move on, honoring the sacrifices of Harper and Mia. In the distance, the outline of the forest disappeared in the rearview mirror, but the memories would remain with it forever. Months have passed since the final confrontation in the Blackwood Forest, but that night's events remained recorded in Ethan's mind as invisible scars. He had returned to his hometown, a small coastal village in the state of Maine, where the sound of the waves and the salty smell of the sea offered a sense of peace that he didn't know he needed. Ethan had found work as a mechanic in a local workshop. His hands, once used to break trails, now deal with engines and tools, a welcome distraction. He rarely talked about what happened, but the nights were a challenge. Nightmares with roots that dragged on and voices that echoed in the darkness woke him up sweating cold. "Another strong coffee?" asked the owner of the village coffee, a gentleman named Ben. Ethan nodded, grateful for his morning routine in that quiet place. Harper's necklace, now used as a keychain, hung from his backpack. He carried him to remember her and Mia's sacrifice. One morning, while adjusting the engine of a boat, a woman entered the workshop. She had dark hair tied in a bun and a curious look, as if studying Ethan even before she even spoke. "You're Ethan, right?" she asked, holding a block of notes. He cleaned his hands with a cloth and frowned. "I am. Can I help?" "My name is Rebecca. I'm a journalist. I'm investigating cases of disappearances in remote forests." and Blackwood's name appeared with yours. Ethan felt his heart shoot. It was as if the forest had found him again, even so far. I don't know what you heard, but I don't want to talk about it. Rebecca stepped forward insistently. I know what you spent inside. I'm not the first person to talk to you about it, but I can be the only one you believe in what you saw. He hesitated. No one had ever believed in his words, not even the police officer, but something in her tone convinced him to hear. Why are you so interested in this? He asked. Rebecca sighed. Because my sister has disappeared in Blackwood 2 years ago. May, and if there is a chance to find out what happened to her, I'll risk it. Ethan felt a tightness in his chest. He knew what he meant losing someone to the forest, and he also knew how much that investigation could consume Rebecca, just as Mia had consumed. He cleaned his forehead sweat and looked straight at her. If you think you can bring your sister back, you're wrong. Blackwood does not return anyone. Rebecca didn't go back, but her gaze softened. Perhaps, but I need to try. Ethan shook his head, frustrated. I lost 2 people inside, people who were important to me. I can't stop you, but if you go, know that. The forest will use what you love the most against you. She will try to break you. Rebecca remained silent for a moment, but before leaving, she left her business card on the table. If you change your mind, any detail can help. That night, Ethan went out to walk the beach. The waves broke softly against the sand, and the full moon illuminated the horizon. He held Harper's necklace, as he did every night, and looked into the sea, looking for answers that never came. It was then that he felt a warm breeze, unlike the cold wind of the coast. He heard a low, almost imperceptible sound that resembled a soft laugh. Turning, he saw something that made his heart stop. Mia was there a few meters away. She wore the same serene smile he had seen on the road months earlier. Are you okay, Ethan? She asked, the kind voice as he remembered. Is that real? He took a hesitant step toward him but stopped. Mia nodded, but her eyes carried a weight he recognized. I'm where I need to be, but you still have a way forward. Protect what you love, Ethan. Don't let the forest take more of you. Before he could answer, Mia disappeared, dissolving as a mist. The next morning, Ethan decided to do something he had avoided for months. He took the Rebecca card and called her. Rebecca, I'm Ethan. If you go after the forest, I want to be there with you. Across the line, there was a moment of silence before she responded. I knew you couldn't stay away. Ethan kept Harper's necklace in his pocket and took a deep breath. He knew the forest still kept secrets, and that returning would be like facing a nightmare again. But perhaps this time he could make a difference for Rebecca, to his sister, and for the many other stories that the forest had silenced. And so, with the weight of the past on his shoulders and a new purpose, Ethan began another journey. What did you think of this outcome? Leave your opinion in the comments. We love to know what you think. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave a like to support our work. See you in the next video.